Hey, it's Michael Douglas. Welcome back to another episode of Dr. Pundit, where we talk about music, not medicine. And, my life revolves around playlists. Sometimes when I listen to a certain playlist with a certain theme, I really get excited and I think, wow, I really should talk about this on my YouTube channel. And it's a very fleeting thought because many times I have the same thought when I listen to yet another one of my playlists. And today's show is no different. And on this particular playlist, there are 4 songs within the playlist that I still listen to on a regular basis today, more than 40 years after they were initially released, 1979 to be exact. And I want to talk about those 4 tracks today. So let's get into it. Now, the year 1979 was a classic year that was a little bit odd for classic rock music because of the 4-billion-pound elephant in the room, disco, and its effect on everything from pop music to country to classic rock, or at that time, rock music in general. And a lot of the chart-topping or otherwise popular releases from that year were a little bit classic rock and a little bit disco with some avant-garde flamenco-leaning elements that were also thrown in. And I think these 4 tracks illustrate that concept perfectly. Now, maybe it was the onset of New Wave, which was just around the corner, the second British invasion, as it were. But either way, a lot of kick-ass music came out in 1979 that was much more than disco. Disco's effect on classic rock would be the best way I would talk about these 4 tracks. So let's take a look. Good Night Tonight by Paul McCartney and Wings. This was, of course, one of Paul McCartney's later tracks with his band Wings, and I think it's one of his best. Not a #1 hit, it hit #5 in 1979. And I really couldn't leave this off the list. This song was written by Paul McCartney and it hit in March 1979. I remember I was in junior high. Didn't buy the album, which was called Back to the Egg, and a lot of critics kind of dismissed this album at the time, and a much better track on the album failed to crack the top 20. It hit number, I think, 29, 27, a track called Arrow Through Me. Fantastic track. Should have been a top 5 hit as well, but that's really not a subject for this show because I think the flamenco stylings of Goodnight Tonight really make this song. And the video featured the band in 1930s style costumes, and stills from the video were on the singles, the 45 singles sleeves. And believe it or not, this song represented the 7th iteration of the band Wings, where the mainstays, of course, Paul and Linda McCartney and Denny Lane, were joined by 2 new members, Lawrence Juber and Steve Holley on drums. Joy Division with the track She's Lost Control. Now, how about some post-punk classic rock in this vein? It leans more toward a mutant disco vibe, in my opinion, and I think that's why I put it on this list. This is a pretty cool track from the album called Unknown Pleasures. It's a kind of a heartbreaking one, considering that, believe it or not, seizures, epilepsy was the inspiration for this track, which band member Ian Curtis suffered from. It's poignant and it focuses on the subject of disability stigma. And it's just one of many songs from the album that prove that Ian Curtis was definitely ahead of his time. Joy Division and She's Lost Control. This next one is a fun one by the band Kiss, I Was Made for Loving You. Of course, the song is controversial in so many ways because you had the diehard Kiss fans who were, let's face it, they, just male kids, complexes, homophobia, a lot of it internalized, and it really came through on this song because of the clear effect disco, which a lot of LGBT, they weren't called that at that time, people really glommed onto. Disco spoke to that demographic. Well, clearly Kiss borrowed a lot from that demographic for this song. And it's from the album Dynasty. I think it's a take it or leave it album from 1979. And you just really can't deny how I Was Made for Loving You is just a really fun song to listen to, especially when you take away all the fan contentiousness from this song. Just listen to it drama-free. Now, interestingly, this song, I Was Made for Loving You, was the first track the legendary Desmond Child had as a writer. Now, of course, he went on to write other huge hits. Ricky Martin's Livin' La Vida Loca was an example. I Hate Myself for Loving You, Joan Jett and the Blackhearts, so a lot of good stuff. And Kiss was a band that really didn't pull a lot of the writing from the outside. And, Paul Stanley and Gene Simmons wrote a lot of their songs together, as you know. So that's another thing that really makes this a unique song when you think about that as well. And quite a fun fact for this song is that this song hit number 11 on the Hot 100, and only one of two songs in the history of the top 40 to start out with I Was Made For in their titles. I Was Made for Loving You by Kiss and I Was Made for Dancing by Leif Garrett, which also hit number 10 that year, 1979. So the only two titles ever starting with I Was Made For, and they both hit number 11 and 10 in 1979. Just another chart quirk. Finally, Tusk by Fleetwood Mac. The album that was supposed to have superseded the commercial juggernaut that was Rumors 2 years prior. Now, of course, no act can do that. No act can follow an album of that magnitude with an album of equal magnitude. It just, it just really isn't done. And, I think the band Fleetwood Mac understood that. The track Tusk, which was also a top 10 hit number 8 that year, I think, and I like, and I always have liked, because I think it's a fine piece of work. It's more on the avant-garde side and pop side of classic rock, but I think it's suitable for this list of songs from 1979 all the same. This was written by Lindsey Buckingham and hit number 6 in the UK, number 8 in this country. Now everybody knows that the word tusk is slang for penis. Now, maybe at that time it was more slang than it is now. I barely hear of that. So the song is about sex. And when Stevie Nicks heard the album was going to be Tusk, was going to be called Tusk, she objected, but Mick Fleetwood really wanted to use the title, so he ignored her and she dropped the subject. So a lot of people like to talk about the University of Southern California, the USC marching band, and their input on this song. The USC Trojan Marching Band was recorded at Dodger Stadium on June 4th of 1979 while the LA Dodgers were away on a road trip. And this was 3 days before graduation that year from the university. So while some band members really didn't show, most did, and rehearsals took place in late May, and on the day of the recording, each band member signed a release and was paid $1, $1, and the whole scene was filmed, and the footage was used to make the music video. Stevie Nicks was even seen in the video twirling a baton. So, yeah, there you go. So I think these are 4 great songs that really encapsulate the avant-garde nature of classic rock that particular year. Kind of a quirky year, 1979 in that regard, but still 4 compelling tracks that I know a lot of you who are watching this probably do listen to from time to time, but not as much as I probably do. I'm Michael Douglas. If you like what you see here, please don't hesitate to like and subscribe. And as the late great Barry White always used to say, let the music play, and I'll see you on the next episode.